And on his last day of work, he was garroted, which means he was choked with a wire and hung on a door, and we were told that he killed himself. When we got to Singapore, they handed me the suicide notes found on his computer, and from the first sentence, I knew my son did not write those suicide notes.
Hello everyone, I'm Heather Hobbs with The New American, and today we have Mary Todd. Mary Todd, we are so grateful that you are here to share a little bit about your story. Mary has a very compelling story about why she's running for office, and she's a mother. As a mother myself of 4 amazing children, this is a story that you have to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about your story, what you've been doing, and why you're doing it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather. I sure can. So in 2012, our life changed forever. We got a call from Singapore telling us that our son, Shane Truman Todd, had committed suicide. He was a PhD in electrical engineering working for a firm in Singapore. And what led up to that day, that horrible day when we got that phone call, was that our son told us he was being asked to compromise U.S. security with China, and he would not go along with the illegal transfer of technology to China. So he quit his job. He got a new job in the United States. He had a ticket to come home. And then he told us that his life was being threatened. And I homeschooled my kids. I think I was a little Pollyanna and very naive. I'm like, Shane, they're not going to kill you. You're coming home. You have a job. And on his last day of work, he was garroted, which means he was choked with a wire and hung on a door. And we were told that he killed himself. When we got to Singapore, they handed me the suicide notes found on his computer. And from the first sentence, I knew my son did not write those suicide notes. I homeschooled him.
That must have been devastating to you as a mother. And also, you know, we know our children.
Right.
You knew that was not from your son, right? You knew.
100%. I knew that it was not from my son. And then we had 2 linguistic experts that looked at the notes and said, not only did your son not write them, an American did not write them. And so that was the first clue that we had. But then all the defensive wounds all over his body. How do you have defensive wounds? But most importantly, we found in his apartment a little, what I thought was a Mac speaker. And we took it home, and it ended up being an external hard drive where my son had backed up all of his work files. And that I wrote a book called Hard Drive, A Family's Fight Against 3 Countries, explaining exactly what my son was into, the kind of technology and the proof that he was being asked to compromise U.S. security.
Yes, and we know the Chinese Communist Party is renowned for stealing information, for plagiarizing and utilizing other people's ideas, whether it be technology or, you know, science, medicine, all of those things. They have these moles, and we've proven it. And they're also taking and bribing American officials. We saw it with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
We saw that we had a professor at Harvard who was working with them, who was involved with this horrible travesty that's going on right now. And so for me, a lot of people may say this is an unbelievable story or this is just conspiracy theorist stuff. But it seems more and more often nowadays the conspiracy theories are no longer theories.
Exactly. People called me a crazy mom who couldn't accept the fact that my son killed himself, except for that I have all the proof. And we have all the proof written in this book, Hard Drive. And so what happened was my husband and I were the sole investigators into my son's death. After a year, our story broke with the Financial Times. They did a big write-up on what happened to my son, and we were so relieved, thinking, good, now our government will take over. They showed the technology that he was working on. Had he transferred it, it would have been treasonous. They showed everything in this 7-page spread in the magazine. It was called Death in Singapore. And so we went to Washington, D.C. 48 Hours followed us for a full year and did a documentary on our family. I met with every official all the way up to the top. But one day I'm
Which is above and beyond what a lot of parents would do. And not for a lack of trying. Many people don't get that far. Many people are silenced or turned away. And I really am grateful and appreciative that you pushed as hard as you could
Well,
to
most-
get your son's story out there.
Most parents don't have a hard drive. It was only because of the hard drive. We had all the evidence on his body that he was murdered. We had the DNA evidence, but they wouldn't have cared about that. But the hard drive showed the evidence of what he was working on, and it also showed that it had been accessed after his death by a company called, or not, it wasn't accessed by this company, but it showed the illegal relationship between Shane's company, IME, and Huawei, the largest telecommunication company in the world, and the illegal relationship that they denied. But we had the hard drive. So they confiscated my son's computers, his cell phones, his work diary, but we found this little speaker that backed up everything. So that's why hard drive, and that's why we've gotten so far.
So that was like a saving grace that God gave your family.
Yes, yes.
So we know that you are running for office, and I believe that you're doing all of this because of your son, right? That is
That's
the driving factor.
That's correct. I believe God's called me for such a time as this. I believe I know things most Americans do not know. And I'll never forget the day I sat in Congressman Wolf's office in Virginia. He was from Virginia. We were in Washington, D.C., and he said to Rick and myself, my husband and I, you guys are doing the right thing, but you're not going to get anywhere. And he said, I asked him why, and he said, because Huawei owns a law firm on every corner in Washington, D.C., and has bought out several of our elected officials. Therefore, I know deep
and
state.
We know about the deep
Right.
state, especially at the New American. We feature deep state all of the time, and people don't seem to really fully understand and comprehend the threat that China is. But I think what is great about the fact that Biden is in office right now, though we know he shouldn't be there,
Right.
is it's actually waking people up.
Yes.
People are finally opening their eyes because there is something happening in America, and we know there's something not quite right about it. And I'm really grateful that you're here and that you're running for office. I hope that you'll continue to share your son's story.
Thank
because
you.
it is a story that I hear often about people who go to China. And we see now a lot of journalists are disappearing, a lot of college kids are disappearing, travelers just visiting. It's really an epidemic.
Yes.
And I would love to have you share what website you have, if you have
Okay.
one, and where
Yeah.
people can find more
Thank
information
you.
about
Thank you so much. So my website is marytodd4mt.com, and you'll see, it tells my story a little bit on the website. But mainly I'm running because all of what's going on in our country is intertwined. China has a 100-year plan to take over the world.
Yes.
They are taking over our universities. They have the One Belt, One Road initiative. They are taking over our internet. And so this has got to be stopped. But aside from that, I believe God is going to raise up great Americans to take the place of people who have done it for the wrong reason. And so we're going to take our country back.
We need more people who are righteously and valiantly fighting for freedom and fighting for the America that we all love. Because as a mother, I just want to have a free country left for my children, and every American out there should want the same. So thank you for sharing your story.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to say I cannot be bought. I am living for the line, not the dot, which means I'm living for eternity. This time on earth is very important and critical. What our decisions now, what we make, how we behave, what we do for our country makes a difference. Thank you for having me.
We will be held accountable.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's personal responsibility. Again, this is Heather Hobbs with Mary Todd. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.